All right, what's up, guys? So this is like a little podcasting for my assignment. So I'm gonna be talking about my memories in which I experienced some literacy, identity, trying to find the way I learn and type of things through, certain areas of my life. I'm gonna start around first grade because I would say that's one of the biggest changes that I experienced in my life. So, from living in Donna for almost all my life and all of a sudden moving to Bronzeville from first grade, it was hard. It was unexpected. I wasn't ready for it. And at that time, I wasn't really taking much of a big interest in reading or anything like that, and I wasn't really focused in literacy and the way I would learn and how I would learn it. So moving to Bronzeville, going to class was one of the, I would say, more scary experiences I had. I went in not knowing what to expect, being homesick, not knowing what to do, and it was just tough. I was missing my friends, and at that point I just didn't want to be with anyone, so I was more reserved with myself. I didn't want to ask the teacher for help. um, Everything I would read I wouldn't clearly understand. Everything just seemed like a blur to me. So later on, my teacher noticed some horrible grades at the time, and she took the time and talked to me. We had a conversation of what was going on, and there I started explaining how I was missing my home and my friends, my school, and things like that. And she took it a bit more easy on me, but at the same time she was trying to find a way that would help me learn how to read, or my strategies in reading. So I would say that's where my journey really began. So the teacher took her time. She would come up to me, try to explain it more to me, and from that point on, I started learning how to. At that level, I started learning how to highlight certain keywords and paragraphs, and that's some way drew a little spark in my literacy and the first stage of learning. Going on to another major step would be in third grade. That's when we started having our tax test, which was now known as the STAR test. I passed it, honestly, not knowing how I passed it. It was a really interesting experience. I didn't really know what to expect for that test. I remember being scared for someone who wasn't so good at these subject. I just didn't know what to do. It was just hard for me, but I managed to pass. I managed to somehow um, guess some of the questions correctly, and it was just really cool for me. Luckily I got lucky. My teachers at that time would work with me more. At that time, I had, I was still over there in Bronzeville. I'm barely getting used to getting used to over there. And after that test, shortly after, another crazy change happened. I would see it as a good change though. I went back to Donna. We moved back. So now it's another whole transition back to a different style of learning over here compared to over there. So going over it and going through it, it was something really interesting. I was more happy with this move. I was able to be more with my friends. I felt more comfortable. I felt more at home. At that time, I did not pass one of my English benchmarks. So at that level, they put me in this program that they were having during school. It was this Crunch the Star program. So it wasn't just English, but I got a lot of things out of that Crunch program. Um, I learned a whole bunch of new strategies. I learned how to write notes, how to find the main idea of maybe that certain paragraph, and it was something new, but I knew it was going to be helpful. So after that, coming to the Star, I felt more confident. I felt like I was really starting to discover the way I learned and was in literacy. I began to learn new things that started developing who I am in literacy today. So, taking the test, I went in confident. Something still, right hooked me, and it was like, a bit scary at the time. But once I started focusing more, the questions seemed to be easier, I knew it was a good change because all the strategies I was doing started lining up and it started working and it started developing something, and I liked it, So it set another major spark for me. So I would see it as another pillar of or stone in my life. So going in further in, I would say would be seventh grade. Seventh grade, I met one of my favorite teachers who brought up this book, Cirque du Freak. Weird book. But me, as someone who wouldn't read a lot and would only read in school, this is a book that caught my attention to the point where I would start reading it outside of school. And it wasn't just one book. It was a whole bunch of series. And after I finished one, I wanted to go to the next and the next. And it was just great. So this teacher really opened up my eyes to a different way of reading. I guess a more freely on my own type of reading, something that we didn't really have to dissect, but it really showed me imagery. Imagery is something that made this book come alive to me, and so I'm really happy that I was able to experience that. It took me to another level in which it helped me out. At that point, I also had my writing teacher. Oh my God, Miss Vargas. She was an amazing teacher, but she was really cool. She would try to talk like us, but at the same time was like a strict writing teacher. And I remember at that time I was learning how to write better because we all write when we're younger, but we all just writing little love letters type of thing, before we had phones. So we're over there writing those little things, or we start writing a really dumb story. I remember I loved to write little short stories back then in elementary. And it would always be something, whatever, it was just a big paragraph, no periods or commas or anything like that, any punctuation. So now coming into writing, my writing class, it was something cool, it was something different, now it wasn't just about throwing a whole bunch of words and making a big paragraph, but throwing a whole bunch of words correctly and in certain sections that makes it into a better writing itself. So that's where I learned about intros, bodies, conclusions, commas, and everything like that, and it helped me and it elevated me in a way. So there, learning a whole bunch of writing process, I believe that's where I learned how to revise and edit for the first time. So it was a really good experience in that class. It elevated me in my writing, like I said. So now going into another pillar of my life, which I would say didn't happen until my senior year. That's a huge gap from 7th grade to senior year. But around those areas, between those, it just wasn't interesting. I started getting teachers who I would say didn't have the fire to teach. They just gave us simple, not effectful impactful, I think that's how you say that word, challenges to us. It was just, read this and answer these questions type of thing, nothing fun. So going in to senior year, this is the year that a writing never counted so much. So I was working on my essay to turn into this university, the stakes, they were pretty high. They're like, oh, like, what am I gonna do? What can I say? An experience of my life that would impact these people in such a way. So I went to my teacher, we brainstormed a whole bunch of things and where we could attack it, what approach to take, and what, from the three topics that they give us, something that isn't like our own choice, but something that they're asking for us. So I remember I had chosen challenges and how I overcame them and opportunities that opened with them. And me and my teacher started going at it, back and forth. Like, all right, he would ask me a question, I would answer it, we would have that connection of back and forth. So when it came to writing it, I remember we were having like a big brainstorm session, and then finally it hit us. I came up with this writing. I just threw it on there, and I remember he's like, I like it, but it could be so much better, and I know you could do so much better. That confidence in which he had in me was just amazing, that he knew what I was capable of, even before I saw it. At that time, since my parents didn't really know much about, writing something, and they had to come out of school early to start working due to my grandpa's passing, so they both had to work at such a young age. So they didn't have the experience with school to be helping me, at least in this level. So I would see my teachers as, I would say, like a parent figure type of thing. I would see them as parents when it came to writing, because I knew they would be able to help me. And they treated me like if I was their kid. So that helped me a lot. He was guiding me in where to go, how to go. And little by little, he started revealing parts of my identity that I didn't even know I had. And it made me into a really good writer. And I really deeply appreciate my teacher for doing what he did, going out of his way, staying after school, helping me, asking him to look over it and give me suggestions, me fixing those suggestions and bringing it back, and just improving iron, sharpening iron. And it was just forming this amazing essay that I was gonna turn in. And it just, everything that I wanted to say was there. And I think one of the biggest challenges in that time was the amount of words they allow us to have. So I had to go from like 1,500 to almost 2,000 words, down all the way to 700 some words. Imagine that, having to put all my experience and everything, all my challenges and opportunity up to that, but yet we made it work so well. It was just an amazing experience. He elevated me in my writing. He elevated me in my reading. He pushed me. He challenged me. And it was just something so great. And it made me who I am. All these experience, good or bad, the times where I didn't understand, the times where I would stress, the times where I would move from my school, the times where I would not feel a connection with my teacher, to finding certain teachers that would end up affecting and impacting my life, and to this extent level. It was just amazing. So putting all these experience and memories together, not thinking it at like not thinking about it in that moment, but thinking about it now, is just amazes me. I never thought I was someone who would go through so much, but yet when I think about it like that and what I went through to get to where I am now, something that I could say was a good fought challenge and a race, and where it just started developing me. I was going through pressure, I was going through fire, and it brought me out as, I don't want to like sound weird or anything, but I came out like a diamond, you know. I was a coal and I just started going through that pressure and heat, and it made me who I am. You know, I might not be a perfect diamond or oi. I maybe didn't come out as a perfect diamond, but I know I came out as something that was in the image of greatness and perfection. And I know it's something that is going to continue to form throughout the years now in college. And just, you know, I was a small diamond. Now I'm just adding on to it, you know, adding all that gold and silver into, you know, turn into something crazy, probably a chain or something. You know, I couldn't think of anything, but you know, you know what I mean. But yeah, so in these experiences in which I went through, you know, it really just elevated me, and it made me find my identity and who I am right now as a reader and a writer and someone who has gone through a whole bunch of different stages to learn something that was so hard for me in the beginning, and not knowing who to talk to. My teachers would find ways, and the ways in which they would teach me is sitting down, taking their time, and explaining what I have to do. If I couldn't understand with just talking, they would demonstrate it. And I learned today that I am more of a visual learner. One of my outside experiences, I saw an opportunity to learn how to play drums, and I took it. How? I started watching YouTube videos and getting behind a drum kit or a drum set and start practicing for hours and hours. And that's the way that I've learned for these past years or so. And that's who I've become as someone who is in literacy and, you know, learning, and how I was able to develop my identity in all this crazy world. This is who I am in literacy. And yeah, so this was a short podcast, and maybe not that short, but it was something, that kind of telling y'all a little bit about myself and the things I would have to go through. And that's all for today. Yeah, that's my little podcast. Hey, miss, come through. I tried hard on this recording. But thank you for giving me this opportunity to explain my experience in a more, different way. This is the first time I've ever recorded my voice and sent it to someone like this in a little podcast. But it was fun, and I hoped I was able to cover the topics in which you wanted to hear. So thank you for hearing, and have a good day.